Hey there. Welcome to another edition of Cambridge Inside Out. My name's Robert Winters.
My name is also Robert Winters.
No,
Oh,
it's
come
not. He's a
on.
liar.
My name is Patrick Barrett.
And I'm Judy Nathans, co-host.
You got all three of
Third
us
wheel,
this week.
whatever.
There we go. There we go. Anyway,
And we're here to talk about Porter Square.
Actually,
Stop.
no.
You are a real jokester.
Though actually, I was getting into it with some of the Porter Square people
Uh-oh.
today because there's
They
apparently
feel neglected.
there's a place called Walk and Roll which is closing.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, but it's been there forever.
Has it been?
It's in between like two Indian and Thai restaurants.
Yeah. And you know, and it kind of brings up a bigger issue, of course, about why do places close? You know, is it the rents? Is it the
Why do we
this?
get
Is it
old?
that? Yeah.
Why do things change?
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's hard.
Yeah.
Are you going to be the one to break it to Joseph and Nabil at the Middle East that they have to run that place forever? They'll be sad.
They're probably doing quite well, though.
You're not allowed
You
to
never
go.
stop.
I think
It's
Walk
true.
and Roll didn't do so well, maybe.
Right.
Who
Yeah,
knows?
it's tough to run a restaurant.
But meanwhile, back in Central Square, good old Central Square,
Good old Central
where
Square.
we reside at this very moment,
Yeah.
there are some rumblings of possibilities here.
That's true.
Of,
Well, tomorrow
yeah.
afternoon at some time, I forget exactly the time,
2 o'clock,
2
Wednesday,
o'clock.
in city, the council chambers.
Council Chambers, there is a meeting of the,
Economic Development and University Relations Committee. I have the order.
and the topic is
The
The
arts overlay.
specific to Central Square.
specifically Central
Well, we
Square.
are
not-
the cultural district.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
the
right.
district.
One of
Right.
43, I found out,
That is
Right.
true.
in the country, I mean, in the Commonwealth.
So as a little background, the city council passed an order, I don't know, was it a couple months ago now?
Is it this one? March 26th?
It
Yeah.
was either, it was
Yeah,
actually,
it's
was
City
that
Council, March 20th, adopted as amended, and then there was another one about specifically EMF that was,
did that happen later, or was that
yeah,
same
April
year?
2nd.
Okay, so it actually predates the real,
Right.
What had happened was
Bubbling.
they had the order about the arts overlay, and then all the EMF people had
Yeah.
showed up at that hearing thinking
Right,
we could talk about
right.
I see.
It was at the
voting.
same time, but it
The
wasn't
agenda.
actually on
I
the
get it.
agenda, right, okay.
all right, so anyway, the notion is, and again, I'm a little unclear on this, so you're gonna have to help me out
Patrick
here.
will
I'm here,
fill
I'm
us
here.
in.
Right, so there's this notion that we want to create something that's going to help the arts community or create some sort of a more of an arts district in our cultural district
Right.
Mm-hmm.
of Central Square. And to whatever degree this can be assisted through changes in zoning.
Yep.
There was a city council order that says we want to refer this here to possibly craft some kind of legislation, put something in the
Well,
zoning.
but it
to help
first
make it
goes
happen.
to a committee, yeah.
Right. So the thing is that sometimes you
Yeah.
pre-bake
Oh,
it,
drafting and, yeah.
like a citizen
Okay.
petition comes in, like Barrett, you've been doing this.
Right.
I am a
Many
serial
times.
petitioner.
Serial
Right.
petitioner right here, and then it just sort of goes right in, and then it gets processed through
Yeah.
ordinance, planning board, etc., etc. But sometimes, like for example, with the change in the linkage, I think it was a
Change
year
in
something ago.
linkage, the short-term rental.
Right, so it went to other committees so they can hash out the details first, and then, and only then,
Does
when
it
there's
go
some
to-
sort of good language.
It's kind of
ready to
how it
roll.
should be done.
Kind of how
Right.
it should be done,
A process,
right?
right.
So anyway, so if you want to one day, whenever, come up with some change that's going to make things really happen here, it's now in front of the Economic Development
Tomorrow.
Committee.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tomorrow to talk about it. You know,
Can you clarify something for me? Because
Sure.
I thought, and I listened to a lot of the testimony, that it was more about their workspace. No one lived at EMF.
That's true.
Okay,
Right.
because this order does include live/workspaces, which I know we've talked about in the past and has gotten us into trouble, like why should they get a place to live, So,
Well, but I think what's being talked about
Right.
is trying
So
to
can you-
solve for artists in the cultural district
Okay.
using multiple techniques. And I think
All
one
right.
of them being housing, the other being this live work
All of-
idea. There's out there
okay.
this live work idea where their workspaces are places where they can actually live.
like Brick Bottom or in
Yeah.
Somerville. Okay, right, but is that achievable, or maybe they should just first, I'm sure the EMF people would like to just be able to have a place to.
Well, I think you have to separate EMF from the arts.
Okay, but
Two
the
different
idea of
things.
that building was a place, a workspace.
Yes, it was.
And if you could have nothing, would you rather have a workspace or places to live? Because I don't think you can get both at the same time.
I
Not-
absolutely disagree.
Okay.
So I think.
All right, so
that-
you're all for that.
Yeah, well, it's something that the rest of the country has adopted in more progressive zoning areas where they look at form zoning,
Okay.
saying these kinds of uses are not so dissimilar that makes them incompatible.
Okay, but is it affordable? I mean, the Piano Factory, you know about the history of that place?
When you talk about affordability,
Boston?
you have to, you
Yeah.
can't just look at it in a vacuum. Is
Yeah.
the EMF affordable? Maybe if you zone it for whatever you need to get to, but I think you should look at what you want and then zone for that.
Okay.
Because if you try
Alright.
to solve all your problems with zoning, which I think
Well, that's
we're all
what I
kind
guess
of,
I'm
we're all
getting
kind of
at.
guilty of doing.
Yeah.
And a wise woman told me that you should never do that. She knows who she is. You're not going to. You can't immediately say, "Oh, if we do this, it becomes affordable."
Okay.
What you try to do is try to say,
This is allowed in this area.
you take the river and you try to funnel it this way or that.
Okay.
So if you have, and I think in the cultural district, and you said something earlier about, why should we allow artists to live in a space versus somebody else, and that's a
Well, I
question.
know because that's come up in the past
Yeah.
about, teachers and everybody else. Why do they
yeah.
get special treatment?
And I think that
Yeah.
right now they don't get any special treatment.
Right.
I think if anywhere in the city where you could possibly justify it, in our
Would-
cultural district is a place where you can.
Okay, all right.
Right.
So you see that as possible. That's good to know.
I do.
All
I
right.
think what needs to be done though is I think the Counselor Mallon and Counselor Siddiqui, who I believe are leading the charge here.
Not Sadiq. She was not on this order. She was on. No,
she's
not
on the committee though.
She's on the
Yeah,
committee,
yeah.
right?
So
But
they're
it was
riding her
Malin,
along, yeah.
So
Devereaux,
this is-
and McGovern. Yeah.
And I think this was born out of the frustration of evil John D. Giovanni kicking
Right.
those kids out of EMF.
Kids. They're not kids. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we're all
some of them,
kids.
Yeah.
aren't we? But this is something that's been repeatedly looked at in Central Square with
Right.
going back to the mayor's red ribbon and the concerns and delights of Central Square.
Right.
Worst
Right.
title ever. And then C2, where we had all these non-zoning artistical things and all these different little zoning nuggets that allowed for exemptions for certain kinds of spaces. And I think that's
Right.
where you find it. Where you find the affordability, where you find
Okay.
the possibility.
So
of
I mean, if it can include that as it's possible to maybe live in your workspace, yeah, I get that.
I ran into this
That's-
exact problem
Yeah.
when I built a space for myself in
Yeah.
Kendall Square,
Yeah.
and I wanted it to go beyond what a typical home office would be.
Okay.
Cambridge just has no definition for what that is.
Really?
So what winds up
Yeah.
so what winds up happening is you go to poor Ranjit, who I have all the sympathy in the world for.
Inspectional
Yeah.
services.
Right.
And
Yes.
you
Yeah.
say you want to have this space where you live in,
Yeah.
this space where you work. He looks at it in terms of, well, are you building to residential? Are you building to commercial? The building code, the health code, all
I
these
see.
things
So
come
it
into
has
play.
to be within the zoning designation.
Well, as long as only one layer. So then you have
Okay.
health, you have the actual
Oh,
building code
all right.
itself.
I see.
Right.
So it just runs into.
Even if it's part of your house.
Yeah, well, then it becomes based on use. So if part of your house has a commercial aspect to it,
Then it'd
they
be
would say you have to
subject
build
to
to a
that.
commercial. So which,
I
you're
see.
talking sprinklers in some cases, exit signs. The space that I wound up building for myself,
Yeah.
where I did live in,
Yeah.
I had exit signs. I had
Jeez.
a bubbler in my living room.
But let's face it, most people have a
Did
home
you have to pay
office.
commercial tax rate for that portion?
I did.
Yeah, but most people don't even go that far, and they have a home office, and they just tell the federal government that they work out of their
Well,
home, and the city doesn't know about it. Do they?
And that's true. And I oftentimes, as a landlord in Cambridge,
Yeah.
I am asked by my tenants,
Can I have
can
a?
I turn
right.
this into an office? Do you mind if I have a business use here?
Right.
And I always say no.
Really?
Yes.
Because
say
of
yes.
what happened to,
Yes.
No, I didn't.
or no. I want deniability here. But case by case. But some uses.
it depends if people are going
If
in
you're
and out
talking
of
about-
your
yeah, if
office,
you-
right, exactly, yeah.
What kind of traffic and what kind of
Sure.
liability and what kind of
Right.
safety
Okay,
is your building?
and
going
you
to?
as a landlord,
You
you.
actually mentioned
yeah.
something. Zoning was originally crafted because there was a problem of incompatible uses.
Right.
The classic case of the industrial building next to the kindergarten.
My rendering plant next to my orphanage.
Exactly. So that was the idea. But
Incompatible.
But you could have something which is technically commercial and technically residential that are not incompatible.
So in our zoning
Right.
ordinance right now, we have a home office use category in Article 4.
Oh, we
Yeah.
do.
So if you have
Oh.
4 employees or under, you can be a lawyer, a doctor, a dentist.
Psychiatrist, psychologist.
Yeah, something
okay.
like that, and
A
that's
dentist,
and,
huh?
and that's okay.
All right.
I think part of what these guys are looking to do is to look at that home office category and expand it slightly because,
Who's these guys? When you say-
and I say these guys, I'm talking about the counselors who brought this
Oh,
story forward,
oh,
and the
okay.
committee tomorrow.
They
is
want to
looking-
be more broader and
Right. Well, what's
bigger.
the
yeah.
fundamental difference if you have,
Yeah.
say, 5 employees as to 4, or if you have an online presence where you
Right.
can do point of sale and
Right.
packages are leaving your place, but
Right.
Is it 3
Or if
packages,
you're making
4
a lot of
packages,
noise.
or making a lot of noise?
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
well,
right, yeah, performance space.
And I have to be
versus-
sympathetic to the jam spaces. I'm a drummer. I played.
Oh, yeah.
I played around. The first experience in Central Square is playing drums in the Middle East.
Yeah,
But
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
it's hard to find a space.
where you're allowed to do that.
It's super loud. We're always outside the building, hanging out, smoking our cigarettes and college cigarettes as well. And it becomes like it's a bit of a nuisance category associated.
Right.
But if you look at EMF, it was an electrical warehouse, supply warehouse.
Yeah.
It was on the market since 2004. I looked at it
Yeah,
myself.
how come you know what, there was a meeting the other day of the Cambridge neighbors people, and the EMF people came, one of the guys came, and I guess they're really fighting this legally, but, I said to him, when did you find out the building would be sold? Did people ever get together to try to buy it? And I don't remember what he said, but I guess it wasn't a possibility, but, I mean, when you don't own something and it becomes available, don't you like
The
make
only
some
way you can
artists
really
can't, are
truly
good
secure
business
your
people?
future is to own it.
Yeah, so do you know if you said you looked at it?
Yeah, I looked at it in 2004 or 5.
That's a long time ago.
Right, and it was around the same price that actually John bought it for. And
Oh.
what I looked at it was as a 6 or 7 townhouse conversion.
All right, so you were not trying to preserve it as...
The building itself is in an SD9 district and an SD8 district. Those are
What does
Special
that
District
mean?
9 and Special District 8.
Oh, okay.
Special District 9 is a very strict residential category like C zoning. SD8 has an industrial component
Yeah,
to it.
because a lot of that area was
So-
industrial, yeah.
The problem that
Okay.
John will face when he eventually brings whatever project he wants
Yeah.
is that you're going to have to look at those combined uses and just try to make sense of what you can do there.
We'll get a special permit.
Well, he'll need a variance is what he'll need.
Or that's, yeah,
and
okay.
depending on
So,
actually, depending on what he does. I have no idea what he plans on doing.
well, it's too bad that either people there back then didn't go to the city then. I don't know any,
I don't know
You
that
know.
the city really.
or a
going to the
counselor,
city is-
not the city, but go to a counselor to bring this issue up 2 years ago when they
Why
maybe...
not go to the owner?
Right.
Or some,
Yeah.
or maybe they did, I didn't get
I mean,
the
half the
impression
people that I
that they
spoke
did.
to it from the EMF building never even
Yeah.
spoke to John DiGiovanni, and I was like, well, that's
Well, you know, when
Step one.
this
Well, there
guy,
was some
forget...
word that one of the major players there were instructing him not to talk to him, which I thought, why? I mean,
Well-
he's a human being. Just talk to him.
But you know what's interesting? The person, and he was older, he was not a young guy that did this. I said to him, I went up to him out in between other Jan Devereaux's tree people were there.
Jen Dever.
I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry. I shouldn't say it the way.
No, it sounds
Sorry.
like Tolkien.
No,
Like
no.
Jan
The
Devereaux
subjects
and
were
the ants.
tree
Yeah.
canopy, and then they were allowed to speak. No, it was actually very good, and it was all about tree wells, empty tree wells, which I didn't know. But that's another
Right.
story. But I said to him, "Do you know about the meeting on Wednesday? You'd think that they would know about this meeting," and he
Right.
didn't.
Yeah.
I told him about it. I mean, people aren't talking to each other, or they're
Well,
not. You know,
I
don't know.
specifically endured a Harvard Square Neighborhood Association meeting. Sorry, Professor Blier. But to meet with EMF people and to talk to Symbol Siddiqui about some vacancy
Oh,
issues.
so they were there also.
Well, they were there pleading their case to
I
the Harvard
see.
Square Neighborhood
So
group.
they're going to all the groups. That
Yeah,
makes sense.
and
Okay.
I just think that their strategy and wherever they've gotten
Yeah.
their advice has just not been sound.
I think they're going to court. They're
think-
trying to raise money.
Well, they might be going to the
court.
Harvard Square ones just to poison the well because
They're raising money.
I
but-
don't know. They have a Facebook page, Save the EMF Music and Arts Community for Eviction.
Yeah,
Sign the
they have
petition.
like an Indiegogo to raise money for. I think it's for-
Save EMF, MoveOn.org. I
Yeah.
mean, this is a whole thing.
And
Yeah.
I'm not sure what legal basis they could bring a claim.
And they
said
need
there was
money
some.
to do it.
They said there
yeah.
was some fishiness about the length of their lease, but no one
Yeah.
actually has a copy of it.
Right.
I don't see anything. At least nothing's been presented to me that suggests they actually have any kind of case.
Well, I don't know.
An
They've
eviction,
got
an
a-
eviction in commercial is not like eviction in residential. Commercial tenants
True.
do not have any real
Right,
rights.
well, that's true. Yeah, yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, so
Nor should they.
I'll be curious if they show up or what the hearing tomorrow will be. So
You know-
you've been invited to be a speaker, and do you have any idea what the rest
I
of the
think I've
people
been
will be?
invited to talk more about, to listen and to more,
Sure.
and to talk more about Central Square in general.
Right. I mean, you have
You also have a bit of a
you have a
reputation
stake
as
in
a bit
Central.
of a- You're a zoning writer.
Right. Plus, you have a stake in the place because you have
Well, I'm
buildings.
building a
yeah.
hotel right there.
Exactly.
And
I'm waiting for that rooftop deck.
it's going to be very nice.
Yeah.
This takes me back to C2, and I still have a
Yeah.
grudge, quite frankly.
K2, C2, Kendall,
All right, tell
Kendall
us
Square,
why.
Central Square.
Okay.
And those are the committees that met.
Because
Was it in
five,
there?
5 or 6 years ago,
Yeah.
we had all this sort of the basis for what they're talking about now.
Laid out,
for
yeah.
everything from small retail vendors to artist displays to
Really?
art on the streets to supporting the cultural district. And if that's how the cultural district came about, it was through
Right.
that process.
Right.
Thanks to Jason Weeks and A lot of people who put that together.
Okay.
And then, in 2013, when we were done, when we had the zoning, we were ready to move forward, the councilor just ran away. Because a couple of neighborhood groups pushed, and there's a lot of finger pointing, and I point right at you, Carlone.
Right.
Whoa.
Sorry.
Well, it was councilors running away, but also people in the community development department who didn't want to deal with anything controversial or except, well, actually, they created their own controversies, though.
They really did. It was a weird time. Brian Murphy had passed away.
Oh, this was a really while ago.
Aram had come on board.
Okay.
And I think the 4 new councilors who turned over, it was too contentious or whatever.
This is right at the
And 2
beginning of
councilors really,
2016.
yeah, no, 2014.
14?
14.
13. No, 13, right,
It was
because
the
that's-
election year, but it was actually when they just kicked in.
It's Dennis
So it would
Carlone.
have been for the 2000.
But 2 councilors really wrote on the anti-development. This C2 was going to be the end of all things.
Right. Was that when Mass and Main was being
There was a lot
discussed, or
of
was that before?
nonsensical rhetoric
Yeah.
about Massachusetts Avenue through Central Square
Yeah.
being lined with 140-foot buildings.
Well, that was, the whole Mass
was
and
never
Main project was in
gonna
its, having hearings.
Actually,
Well, so the Massillon people were
They
coming to
showed up.
all of the C2 hearings and listening
Right,
to that.
right.
Once they realized that C2 was collapsed, they came forward with their own plan.
With
Because they
their
already
own
bought
plan.
these lots and they were sort of
True.
waiting for us.
Oh,
They had on several occasions, and I am by no means friends with these guys.
Really?
Um,
Oh, okay.
They have said on multiple occasions that if C2 had passed, they would have stuck with that.
Huh.
So here we have a situation where we were totally ahead of the game.
Yeah.
And the council just left it. And if you ask new councilors who come on
Yeah.
board, they say, well, I wasn't a councilor then.
Yeah.
Which to me is the lamest excuse.
Right, right.
Mass and Main, in many respects, was in lieu of an actual C2
Yeah.
package.
So how does the restoration thing that did get passed relate to that?
So that was written and taken, I took all of this, the little tiny bits,
Yeah.
what I would refer to jokingly as the footloose rules. All the things that John Lithgow would never let Kevin Bacon do. Dancing on the side streets,
Yeah.
musical venues, alcohol to be in every district, every area of the overlay, which you couldn't before get.
Yeah.
We got rid of the fast food cap, which made no sense.
Right.
We added a
So
formula.
you really got it more conservative to be accepted? or-
Absolutely. Well, the only
Okay.
the thing
Let's
that
not say conservative, and
Well, not
basically
conservative,
it's
but
just less
just
controversial.
Less controversial.
less controversial. We
Right.
doubled the density, but did not increase the height.
Okay.
So all these buildings, and what we were looking at was existing structures.
Right.
We're trying to say, well, if you've got a single-story building, now you can go up 6 stories without having to level
Right.
your building
Right.
and start again.
Right,
However, in some cases, that's probably what should happen.
sure.
Right.
And it's not like we don't have height in Central Square anyway. It's just all like nuanced, and what happens, I think, is it gets lost in the shuffle.
Right.
So now we have the arts overlay, which, is
So they should
attempting
look
to
at
do.
that, Kate, they should look at the original,
If they haven't, like, what are they doing?
well, you've been put on notice, whoever's
So
attending that
let
meeting
me ask
tomorrow.
you, because
Yeah.
arts overlay to me,
Yeah,
and I'm not just acting dumb here, I actually am dumb about this.
One
What
of the few
actually
things
is
you're
an
dumb
arts
about,
overlay?
Robert,
I
yeah.
mean, the thing is, you can sort of
Yeah.
say, well, we all believe that we wonderful if we did something, but does it mean allowing certain things if you're currently not allowed? Does it mean
Is
what
it
does it mean?
is it more helpful to think of it in terms of not an overlay, because we already have in Central Square, and what they're trying
Yeah.
to affect is the Central Square zoning overlay.
okay,
Inside the Central Square zoning overlay, we have the Mass and Main overlay, and what they're saying is that an arts overlay would be all of the current Central Square overlays. So forget the word overlay.
Yeah.
And I think what they're trying to say is there are institutions that make Central Square Central Square. The Middle East, the Cantab, just to name 2.
Improv Boston, which is on
Improv
Prospect
Boston,
Street,
the Central Square Theater.
Middlesex Lounge.
And you don't want to lose these things.
Yeah.
And if you lose, if we lost the Middle East, Central Square kind of, in my opinion, ceases to be Central Square.
Right, because
So how can we incent developers, because someday Joseph and Nabil might want to retire.
Right.
Or, the guys on the Cantab might want to move on.
Right.
How do we preserve that and incentivize the next guy to say,
so that
listen.
they can only have a certain kind of business there?
Or that
Is
they
that-
would
yeah.
want to.
Or
Or
they'd want to, or you funnel them in a direction. You say, okay, you have a 13,000 square foot base floor plate that happens to be a musical venue. Guess what? When you buy the building, it has to be that unto the end of all days.
So this is interesting, because in Inman Square with the selling of
Of
the
rights.
S&S, now,
Yeah.
if they had, that's to prevent what's
Boo.
happening there. That's what you're saying, you want to protect,
In reverse, they deed restricted Riles to never be a musical
exactly,
venue.
right.
I want to deed restrict these places to always be a musical
Well,
venue.
you say deed restrict, but is that a zoning
but-
issue?
So it has more to, it has nothing to do with
Okay,
zoning. But I
okay.
think what we're trying to
All
say
right.
is, and deed restrict is a little bit
Okay,
harsh.
all right.
I think what I'm trying to do is say is like, if you have a ground floor use, and we want to keep these ground floor uses active and viable, that
you need-
instead of worrying about, okay, a building is 14 stories tall or 18 stories
Right.
tall, or I'm sorry,
more look at the
Cambridge Residence
use.
Alliance, 3,000 stories tall. What do we really
The eye
want?
of the
It's the
beholder.
use of it.
Yeah, what do we want
So-
inside that building?
Right, but now here's one catch, because I've seen places where they want to say, you must have this, you must have that,
Yeah.
but then the thing is, it turns out that the thing that's mandated is not necessarily economically viable, because
Right.
people don't show up, or maybe everybody's buying things online via Amazon, so the retail that you mandated is now
Sure.
sitting there because they can't
I
get
can-
anybody
Right.
to do business.
We
But-
can't predict for the future of that.
Right.
No, but as an art scene, I think that you could say that you're always gonna want that. Arts are really, I mean, I know
What I
it
can,
sounds
what I can do,
Pollyannish,
what
but
I can predict
Yeah.
is the price of brick, steel,
it's gonna
wood,
go up,
labor,
yeah,
and actual space. You know, it's like
Yeah.
Lex Luthor said, they're not building any more of it.
Right.
So, you know, if we can say that this is a valuable space, the space above that space is just as valuable to some degree, depending on the use, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if residential is the higher use value, or office is the higher use value, or lab, or, you know, and then we balance that out by raising the height of the building, depending on what use is in there, you can offset the loss of that ground floor very easily.
Right.
We just have to be willing to say, okay, you know what? I don't mind a 16-story building, because guess what? The first two levels of that building are going to be
Yeah.
the Middle East and
Yeah.
a museum
interesting.
or artist space.
Right.
You know, I don't think anyone that I've talked to, even Cambridge Residence Alliance people, would object on the face to those kinds of things.
Do you know where there's a lot of artist studios? Is in that building right next to Oban Penn. Have you been up there? Mark Ostow, the photographer. Yeah, I was
I've been
there
up
for an
there,
open.
yeah.
A lot of those are small studios for photographers and artists. I didn't know that.
Right,
I
they
don't know
used,
who
they
owns
used to
that
have
building, but
a screen repair facility in there.
I don't hear of any danger to
Yeah.
that. But you know, it's
Yeah.
happening all over. That there's, you know, hey, if we can make money from this, or if you sell it to
Well,
someone.
I think when there's,
Yeah.
but the rules right now
Yeah,
don't. If I'm looking at this as an
Yeah.
investment REIT or an investment group,
Yeah.
I can't, and I don't know anything about Central Square. I don't know anything what people want.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the rules say, and the
See-
rules say go residential or
Right.
go lab.
yeah.
They don't say anything about arts cultural district or any of that stuff.
But
Right.
even with the Central Square, the restaurant, it doesn't have any.
What the
rules?
Central Square Restoration Petition
Yeah.
did, all that did
All
was
it did was-
give breathing room to existing property owners.
Okay,
It did
all right.
nothing
So
else.
so they really do need to look at this.
All right,
more.
so let me ask something very specific then. So would, for example, would a provision that might make its way into a proposal include something like saying, if you agree to maintain such and such a use, like a musical venue, then you will be permitted to build an extra floor,
That's what should be there.
something like that.
And
Or if you agree to do residential or live workspace for artists,
Right.
but again, I don't know how you restrict it to
Yeah.
just artists.
Wow.
well, that gets
Then
into
you'll
the sticky
get
area.
you'll get
Yeah.
something, right?
Well, I mean, I think I'd put it to the people who spend more, you know, all the time coming to the hearings, objecting to this, that, and the other
Yeah.
thing. You know, what the hell do you want?
Yeah.
And I would rather start and scrap the zoning. Zoning is a bunch of made-up nonsense that we just put upon ourselves to keep rendering plants again away from orphanages. Let's look at a building. If you have a 10,000 square foot plot, show me a 20-story building, and make it sing. Don't constrain me like we do with things for places like Mass and
Yeah.
Maine, where you know we're getting two basically silos next to a giant rectangle.
So you're not liking that, huh?
Well, I
Or
don't
you
mind.
just-
I don't
yeah.
mind it. I just think the building
Yeah.
looks ugly, and they put
Okay.
no thought into it.
Yeah.
You know, whereas like where my hotel is going to be, we decided that those kinds of buildings shouldn't be taller. I'm preserving the existing structure, and we're going to make that place look.
But you
Like
know, I
the
have to
ones
say
that-
the
yeah.
difference is that you are an owner who has a stake in the area. You own this part. You live near him. You know, who's going to come to these meetings? Are there going to be people that want to build housing for artists, or is it just going to be the artists? I mean, you need more people like you.
I think there are more people like
Like
me.
you? Well-
I think what the problem is when we go through these public processes,
Yeah.
especially with C2.
Yeah.
And there are people who are like writing blogs about me who I never even heard of, calling me this, that, and the other thing.
Negative. So in other words,
And-
there's not enough.
Well,
yeah.
at some point, and,
Yeah.
I'm new, so I'm
Right.
back for more. A lot of these guys have
Right.
been here for decades.
And they just
Why
don't
would
want
they
to
listen
deal
the
with
same
it.
crap
Yeah.
over and over again?
Okay.
Right.
Well,
And we're all these evil money grubbing, blah, whatever.
Right.
there's got to be some younger entrepreneurial types that have some money that would want to do something like
There
this.
are
So
lots
if
of
you're
people
out there listening to this by any chance, please come to this meeting tomorrow or get involved, right?
Well, I look at actually,
Yeah.
he's not younger, but
Yeah,
he's
well,
got money.
younger, I
and,
mean,
you know, what Gerald's doing in Harvard School.
Gerald Chan,
Gerald Chan.
Okay, but he hasn't done it yet,
it
the
hasn't
movie
happened,
theater?
so we're,
Well,
I'm hopeful.
the design process for what
Yeah.
Gerald has proposed,
Yeah,
I would put it at 2.5 to 3 year minimum.
okay, yeah.
You have everything picked down to like what the toilet.
So
paper
that's
looks
actually
like.
in, because I thought this council wanted some plans that they haven't seen yet.
Well, I think they gave them basically the
They did?
watercolor. What actually goes
The water-
inside the building and how it all works is yet to
Okay.
be done. It just takes time. It took
Yeah.
me almost 2.5 years
Yeah,
just to do
oh,
it.
yeah, absolutely,
And
right.
actually, one thing
Well,
I
it's
would
still
say
not done.
about, just to leave Central Square, talk a little bit more on
Yeah.
Harvard Square, is
Yeah.
that the property that we're talking about where the old cinema was,
Yeah.
it actually has connections all the way into Palmer Street. There's such
Well,
interesting
Patsy.
possibilities of,
Yeah.
you could create, like, it's
Yeah.
almost like building a little city. It's not just like a corner lot where you
Right.
have a front door and a back door.
That's
you
why
know?
that banner is,
It's,
I don't know why
I-
people were so objectionable.
And I don't want to sound like a grump, but like
Yeah.
I would much rather frame the argument not in terms of there's a housing crisis or
Right.
there's an artist crisis or that there's
Yeah.
any other kind of crisis.
Yeah.
That this place looks like an A-bomb was dropped on it. We need to fix it to somehow,
Uh-huh.
or we're going to grow, or we're going to expand, and this is how we do it. And this is what we want. Do we want an 18-story
Yeah.
gray-paneled, concrete-looking 1984-ish building on Green Street? I don't know who said that. It was a good idea, but it looks ugly as hell. We have
Are
things.
you talking about the,
This
Annie?
building.
well, I think it looks better than what was there, I don't know.
well, it'll work a little better, but it may
It's
not
also,
look
that's
beautiful.
constraints of public monies and stuff. too.
Exactly,
Yeah,
but it's also
okay.
where we have
Yeah,
Half a minute.
some design
yeah, you
guidelines
have half a
that need
minute, right.
to turn the conversation and make it towards
Right.
what beautification is supposed
Okay,
to.
but so you'll be there tomorrow,
will.
which is great, so
Right.
please,
I
it's,
think I'm gonna try and make it there as well.
2:00 Wednesday in the city
And
council
if
chambers.
if you're a
Yeah.
creative person, bring some creativity.
Yeah, and bring some money.
Yeah, and some money, yeah. Yeah, take us out to dinner. Yeah,
Well,
we'll
No,
behave.
Bring a
Stop
pizza.
that, no
Yeah, there we
patronage,
go.
none of
Right.
that stuff, but,
Anyway,
yeah.
see you in a couple minutes on
All right.
Cambridge Inside Out.
Okay.